All right, so that's good. No more
I have
questions.
one.
Oh, wow.
I guess I can ask this myself with the mic.
Yeah, you want to do that? You want to ask yourself?
Yeah, I might as well.
Cool. I don't know. Yeah, okay, it is.
Does the preterist view allow for speaking in tongues today? A lot of people speak in tongues. They believe it's prayer in the Spirit, perfect prayer and praise to God. It builds you up spiritually. To them, it's not over. So what are your views on that?
Having been raised Catholic and then having my first exposure to tongues and prophecy and all the gifts of the Spirit, later on when I was in college at that age, and then coming to preterism and looking at the other side of that, I would say those might be incredibly important tools to some people. A type of meditative state, a type of gamma state, a way to really reach God in their own individual way. But as far as the biblical basis for still receiving prophecy or still or speaking in tongues, I don't see it. As a matter of fact, the common passages that are cited, and I get this all the time when people say it to me, I say, just keep reading, flip the page and keep reading, because it goes on to say, when I was a child, I did the things of a child, but when the perfect comes, and as preterists, we believe the perfect has come.
Right.
And that's, I think, the difference there. So it's people who speak in tongues are not, I would have to say from personal experience, I don't think it's biblical, but it's certainly, they're not idolaters or doing anything incorrect. I know with me in the Pentecostal churches, they continued to tell me that I wasn't saved because I wasn't showing the gifts of the Spirit. And I had a lot of well-thinking people plastering their hands on my head and just said, just say anything, just start it off, just say anything, just go, say anything. And that's, well, you're not saved because you're not manifesting the gifts of the Spirit. And I really thought that was a very mistaken and very strange direction to go in, but I never held it against them that they really felt better. And some people like to sing their prayers, and some people like to kneel or lay prostrate. And these are all tools, but they're not. There's no biblical foundation for it after after the perfect has come.
Well done.
Okay, as preterists, we see this time between Pentecost and 70 AD when Jesus led the second Exodus, very similar to that of the first Exodus, where Moses brought the Israelites out of Egypt. And as they wandered through the wilderness, many signs and wonders were given to them. The manna from heaven, the water from the rock, and so forth. That during the time of the church's initial being built, from Pentecost to AD 70, these signs and wonders were needed in order to establish the church. That these were gifts that God had given for that particular time. And as Brother Steve mentioned, the succession of them comes when the perfect comes. So as preterists, we see that the return of Christ in AD 70, the demolishing of the old covenant and the completely establishing of the new, that is the perfect. No other covenant will be coming after this, no other kingdom, no other anything else. So we have everything all in all. So that there would be a succession. There doesn't seem to be that need for it at this particular, from AD 70 on.
Well, I just wanted to respond to that quickly. I appreciate what both of you said. I totally agree. So one of the things for me with tongues is that when I read the Bible and I read the New Testament, I realize that most of the things that are found in the New Testament were working toward the grander goal. The grand goal was for all things to be summed up in Jesus Christ. That was the goal from AD 30 to AD 70, right? That would be our goal, is to see these things summed up in Jesus, to find completion, to find the Jew and Gentile, these two separate bodies, to be brought together and formed into one new man, as we read about in Ephesians. So again, the tongues, which had everything to do with going out to the nations and preaching the gospel, and men of different nations being able to understand one another, that applied in that context, that they needed tongues to speak to each other and to bring the Gentiles bring the nations into the riches of what the new covenant life was going to be. Today, I liked how Steve had put it in regards to people's personal experience and prayer. And I believe we need to be cautious there, because I never want to disqualify someone's personal experiences with God, and I'm just not that person. I believe that we should be encouraging people in their walk with Christ, and that there's things that I know I do. I raise my hands in worship. I get on my knees when I pray. I know there's plenty of people that think that might be silly and pointless. However, I view that just as valid as my brother. And you've seen I've had many charismatic people here this weekend, and I worship with them. I might get a bit distracted from their tongues in the background. However, I believe that that's just as valid of worshiping God as when I get on my knees and I pray to my God, and I believe that's equipping me to be strong for Him. So I wouldn't want to disqualify someone's experiences with their understanding of tongues. All right, well, with that set up, you had a question?
Well, yeah, it's actually in regard to Steve's answer.